Evening, everybody. I've just watched Glenn Maxwell's brother, and the whole world will hear how her name is correctly pronounced now. Her own brother surely knows the correct pronunciation. Anyway, I've just watched Maxwell's brother on Piers Morgan. Put 1 in the chat if you saw it, put a 2 in the chat if you've not seen it. This is now becoming the biggest story in the world, whereby Trump was questioned today about the Justice Department's imminent meeting with Maxwell. He shifted his eyes and looked away when the CBS White House reporter Ed O'Keefe asked Trump about the matter during an Oval Office photo spray when he was with the Philippines president. He said it was appropriate. I don't know anything about it. They're going to what? Meet her? I didn't know they were going to do it. I didn't follow it too much, but it sounds appropriate to do, is the big story. The president then pivoted to call the matter a witch hunt, a favorite description he used to describe what he considers an unfair prosecution. And then to pivot away from the Epstein story, he went on to attack Obama. I went on David Nino Rodriguez's channel to talk about whether the Obama story is a distraction to deflect from the Epstein cover-up scandal. But what we're going to do is we're going to watch a little bit of Maxwell's brother on Piers Morgan, and then I will start to bring some guests in. So here we go. Let me play a little bit of this.
Well, you really have to ask yourself, why didn't the DOJ ask to speak to Gillan before they indicted her?
Gillan. Get it, folks? Gillan. 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 That is how it's pronounced.
Why is it only now? And the reason I say that is because in 2019, after Epstein died and up until Gillan's own arrest in 2020, she was, to the best of her knowledge and her lawyer's knowledge, not a target. She remained in the United States. They made her, Gillan, available for questions and kept on being said, she's not a target, she's not a target. Suddenly, bang, 60 officers come down on a house in New Hampshire where she was, huge show, this part of arrest and so forth. And then there is a disgraceful press conference organized by the DOJ's attorney in New York. And she is pointed at with a picture of Epstein, the subtext being, this woman is guilty. So we considered that all of that entire process was prosecutorial misconduct. And finally, they decided that they want to talk to her.
Right, we'll come back to this. We've got a few people ready to come in to the room. We have got Liam. Hey, man, thank you for joining us.
Hello.
So I've just been watching this interview on Piers Morgan where Gillan's brother is talking about trying to get her out. And what's your thoughts on this, Liam?
I mean, yeah, I'm not surprised by it at all. I mean, I think it's clear to everyone that she is guilty. However, is Trump really going to dig into this too much? He might decide it's better to let her go to help sweep this under the rug than fully let the DOJ go into this, because I don't think that's that likely.
And if you've got your opinion, viewers, this is our 6th call-in show. And the number's on the screen, 078 79779 if you're in the UK. Worldwide or WhatsApp, it's 011447879779321. And we've also got the StreamYard link in the description box, video link. And we are joined by a friend of the channel, Patrick. Are you there, Patrick?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? How's my audio?
Yeah, your audio is loud and clear, my friend. Thank you for coming in. Have you seen that Gillan Maxwell's brother has just gone on Piers Morgan, and they are desperately trying to get her out? The Department of Justice is going to be speaking to her. What do you think is happening here, Patrick, and how do you think this is going to play out?
Well, it's good to hear from you, Sean. It's been a minute. Last time I was on the show was like right. Was it before? I believe it was before Virginia died, actually. The last time you and I personally spoke on live. So a lot has happened since then. It's really interesting to see everyone talking about Epstein. Like, Sean, I appreciate you. Like in 2019, you were right there in the same tweets. My old profile got nuked on Twitter because Virginia was tagging people like you and I and others who were in the know even back in 2019. So it's crazy to see how people like you have been intellectually consistent on this since day one and never let up the gas. And I appreciate that. It's needed. Right now, what I think is happening is they're trying to distract away from the pressure. I've worked in politics quite a while, ran many campaigns. I know how the sausage gets ground, and I know that they are doing a desperate diversion campaign. They're literally pulling up anything under the sun, like it's like a bingo. It's like we're playing bingo, like Obama, Russiagate, like anything under the sun you can bring up to distract. And to the point of Ghislaine, I think it's important that she speaks in Congress. Absolutely. I think that we need to know. It's difficult and as heinous and as horrible as it is, especially for the victims to have to see somebody lie. I think Ghislaine will lie. She'll say anything that she needs to get exonerated. And I think Virginia said that in her book. For those of you who don't know, there's a book Virginia wrote that was never published, but it's available online via court documents because there was, I think, a case or something about it. So it's important to look at the real survivor's actual words. Sean, I know you've had Juliet on the show. I know that you've had many other people who knew Virginia on the show. And shout out to you for that, because we really need to be victim-centered focused right now, because they're trying to move the goalposts and say, let's have Ghislaine come to Congress. But what I really want to hear is, I want to hear Juliet Bryant, whether she's, video testifies in Congress. And I don't necessarily think it's safe for them to come to D.C. unless they have a full bodyguard protection. So I think that if they're going to give Ghislaine a platform, they need and they must give Juliet Bryant a platform. They must give a platform to Maria Farmer, who, by the way, was just on CNN this morning breaking her silence. So I don't think this is going away. I think we're actually at the forefront of something massive. And I'm really eager to see where it goes from here. What have I missed, though? I know that there's been a lot of developments this morning and this afternoon.
No, well said, my friend. I'm going to put on the screen. We're going to continue a little bit more with Maxwell's brother. See, you and the viewers can see it firsthand. And he's talking about her possibilities of getting out, the avenues that have already been explored, and now the pending discourse with the DOJ.
So you think it should have been done years ago?
Of course.
The second development is that the House Oversight Committee, Congress, has voted to subpoena Ghislaine. Will she be willing, from your understanding, will she be willing to talk to both the Deputy Attorney General and to be deposed by the United States Congress?
Well, this has happened quite literally, and I've only heard it, as you have at the same time, in the last 5 minutes about the Republicans deciding that they're going to subpoena her. At the moment, Gillan's lawyer, David Oscar Marcus, has indicated that he is talking to the government to set up this originally requested meeting with Todd Blanche. Whilst this is going on, you need to be aware that Gillan is involved in multiple live legal proceedings. She has a live petition in front of the Supreme Court. The government has chosen to oppose that. The same DOJ that is wanting to interview her is opposing her simultaneously. It's quite an unusual position, but that is what the position is. So she has to respond and has to rebut that opposition. That's one set of proceedings ongoing. Then she has to decide how to deal with this particular request that's come in from the DOJ. Now we know that there's a subpoena request coming into Congress, which has to be considered. And in addition to all of that, she has a live, not yet live legally, but in the process of being prepared, motion, which is known as a habeas corpus motion, to be brought in front of the district court back in New York, in which she's entitled to bring new evidence that was not available at her trial, showing government misconduct prior to the trial, in the trial, and post the trial, including, for example, the now, as far as we're concerned, confirmed perjury of one particular juror who perjured himself in front of the judge at the hearing.
So basically, they're throwing every legal technicality possible at the wall. And one of those legal technicalities was the sweetheart deal that Acosta brokered, whereby there were 4 named co-conspirators and unnamed co-conspirators. And if Jeffrey abided by the terms of the sweetheart plea bargain, then none of those co-conspirators could ever be prosecuted. She's been trying to get out on that basis, but they've been ruling that that was just one jurisdiction of the feds and it doesn't apply to these other jurisdictions of the feds. So now they're moving towards these other technicalities that you just heard there, and the possibility that if there was nobody to transport the kids to, if there's no client list, according to Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, etc., then there's no conspiracy. There's no case. What do you think about that? I'll start with you, Liam.
Yeah, so with Maxwell, we're not really looking to close the child trafficking operation because Epstein's dead. John Luke Brunel, Nygaard, all these people, they're kind of done now. So really, the people they were dealing with is what we need. But I feel like those names are already known, and they are often people in the donor class. So the establishment aren't going to go after those people. So I don't really know what they're going to push for with Maxwell. I mean, she's in a good position. Her father received a state funeral from Israel. So I think she isn't in a great position, but I don't think she's in the worst position, as well as the Epstein case and her being one of those people. So yeah, it's confusing as to what they want from her.
The fact that she's alive shows that she's in a much better position than Jeffrey and John Luke Brunel. But I think you touched on something pertinent earlier, Patrick. You know, Maria Farmer made serious allegations about things that happened on a Wexner property. Wexner's out there, you know, free as a bird. And do you think there's any hope, Patrick, that we could go up the ladder to people above Maxwell and Jeffrey and get some criminal indictments going? Or do you think that bipartisan, both parties are implicated, so both parties are going to continue to cover it up?
I think you hit the nail on the head right there, and that's what we're seeing in real time right now. We're seeing a unholy alliance between the Champagne Democrats and what I call the Country Club Republicans. They're one and the same, a uniparty, and ultimately, it's really the American people, and I would argue the global community. This is not just America. No, a lot of people in America always say the American people, you know, when talking about politics. Well, this is bigger than that. This is an international network, and this is intelligence backed. We know this. This psyop that we're being sold that Epstein was just one person and he abused all these kids alone by himself. That's just nonsense. If we look at the macro from a 30,000 foot perspective, if we look at all the different testimonies from Maria Farmer to Virginia to Juliette Bryant, it's very, very clear that this was international. And oftentimes when I see people in the news talking about this issue, they're doing it in such a way, unless they're independent journalists or podcasters, the mainstream news is talking about it, but oftentimes they're doing it in a political football type of way. Like usually the Democrats ignored this Epstein issue for the last 6 years, but all of a sudden it's like watching a kid learn how to ride a bicycle for once. The progressive base who aren't down with this cover up, it seems, like Ro Khanna from California and others, are saying, no, we want to force a House vote on the House floor to get these files out. right now Speaker Mike Johnson, who was one of the people who's like feigning support for Ghislaine Maxwell to testify, he's only saying that to buy time so he can recess Congress until, what, 6 weeks or something? They're going to recess Congress to block this Epstein vote. So we're seeing the weird unholy alliance between the deep state, as you will, the international deep state cabal, whatever you want to call that, that controls America. The oligarchs of America are coming together to block the list. Nancy Pelosi recently said, "Oh yeah, Trump's right. Like we should just move on. Epstein's a distraction." Well, hold up. What was that dude like at her? Remember that while back? That guy like was at her house assaulting her husband with a hammer, and he was like half naked or something. I don't know what happened there, but I think we should ask questions. Was that kind of some weird? Is Nancy Pelosi a beard for her husband doing weird stuff? I don't know, but a lot of times in my experience in politics, there are people like that on the left and the right, and it's usually the boomers who are like more closeted about their exhibition activities. But it's like the progressive millennials and even the the libertarian millennials. They're more outright about how they feel about like, for example, there was like a prime minister from like the Netherlands or something that got caught going to a rave a while back, a couple years ago. And she actually said, "I'm not apologizing. Like, yeah, I'm the prime minister of some European country, but what do you think? Like, you think I'm going to like hide the fact that I also like to go to raves? Like, I'm a young single woman. I also happen to be the prime minister." So there's a generational divide that I noticed between the boomers on the country club boomers and the champagne boomers. They like to have these compartmentalized lifestyles. Whereas the younger generations, and Shaun, you probably could argue to this. You were from the rave scene back in the day. You probably know about that than I. But like, it seems that the younger generations are more intellectually consistent and honest about their behaviors and actions, and they're not down with the abusing kids stuff. So ultimately, I think there's a lot of power because we're seeing an alliance between Thomas Massie, the libertarian, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, hardcore stalwart in MAGA, and others who are signing on to the bill with Representative Ro Khanna, a Democrat from California. And what we're seeing a huge coming together of regular people who are not down with this on both sides of the aisle. But we're also seeing that put pressure on Congress. We would not be seeing a bill between Representative Ro Khanna, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Thomas Massie on this issue unless there was actual real people pressure. And so the real people pressure that we're bringing to this issue and not letting up is exactly why we're seeing the movement in Congress to push this issue. And it's also exactly why we're seeing a divide between the young, good people on the left and the right who want to get ahead of this and clean their hands, and the boomers who are implicated possibly, who don't want to talk about this. So I think that the long ramble short, I think there's a lot of hope, but the only hope that we have is if we keep focusing and centering key points to the narrative and driving that home and culture jamming, refusing to stay silent, like going to Congress. And I will go to Congress here like in September. I don't care if they go to recess for like 5-6 months. I'll come 5-6 months from now. If they go to recess for a year, I'll come a year from now. They can't keep kicking this down the road because what's forming is Team Virginia, as you may know, like the survivors of Epstein, lone survivors, and the friends and family and global supporters of Virginia. We still want justice of that death. And when we come to Congress and demand justice in a real investigation to the cyberbullying that Virginia faced before her suicide, I believe that, like with Discovery, we could demand Lady Hervey's phones and her records to see what she was saying about Virginia and these coordinated attacks, to which she's admitted on even Piers Morgan's. So, like, this is why I'm getting a lot of heat and a lot of attack and a lot of X spaces, because when I mentioned that key point, Donald Trump is hanging out with the lady who cyberbullied Virginia. It's either Team Virginia or Team Victoria's Secret. Which side do you want? That's the issue they really don't want to talk about, because that implicates what did the president know and what did he know about the cyberbullying death of Virginia. That's a nuclear football topic that even the Champagne Dems don't want to talk about. And this is where I'll pitch it back over. I'll leave it here. Virginia's book needs to be submitted to Congress. Yes, Gillan should speak, and we ought to hear what she says. But if we're giving a platform to monsters, we got to give an equal platform in Congress to the lone survivors who are speaking, Maria, Juliet. But also, we ought to submit the book that Virginia wrote that was never allowed to be published, because everyone's asking for the list. But there's a lot of names. Like, I won't repeat it here, but there are a lot of names in that book explicitly detailing Virginia's experiences that aren't actually like in DOJ lists or whatever. But that book, I would argue, is a sort of list, if you will. But what do you guys think about that? I think there is a lot of hope as long as we keep the pressure on.
The viewers are asking where they can follow you, and I've got Patrick's X in the description box, and I've got Patrick's X. I've just put it in the live chat as well right now. Do you have anything to add to that, Liam?
Yeah, this isn't going away. You saw the pressure when Epstein died, and it was all over social media. Even people not in these circles, they were saying Epstein didn't kill himself. So this is not going to go away. I feel you're right. Both parties are stonewalling this because Epstein and Maxwell, really, they played a blinder because they got really close to Trump and they got really close to Bill Clinton. So both sides have reason to try and not dig into this too much, as well as the donor class who fund both sides.
And it's one thing for us activists, researchers, commentators to say that Jeffrey was working for intelligence and probably primarily the Mossad, Israel, etc. But it's another thing for someone who was in intelligence with Jeffrey to say that. And Candace Owens was talking about Ari Benashi on her podcast the other night, which inspired me to re-release with some careful edits the interview I did with him 6 years ago. I released it this morning. And I'm just going to play the beginning and end of the trailer for you guys and get your thoughts. And this is Ari Benashi was working with Robert Maxwell when Robert Maxwell brought Jeffrey Epstein into the fold with his daughter, and they were all working together. And this is an insider. This is not someone looking into the fishbowl. This is a fish. So here we go.
How does Prince Andrew get away with messing around with young for such a long time? One of Epstein's main targets at the time, going back to 1992, was Bill Clinton. The Israelis feared him. Epstein had a role in compromising Mr. Clinton, President Clinton. The Israeli government had access to the highest levels, but as for us, we had access to the higher levels of the CIA and the National Security Council, the White House. The Israeli
Is the operation continuing right now in a way that people aren't aware of?
the Israelis continue operating. They don't stop. He knows a lot, put out a lot, and we have, quote unquote, we have to teach people a lesson. You cannot put out this information.
So just taking a few little points away from that. He said they had the highest levels of access, including the White House and the CIA. And Israel was the prime mover with Jeffrey Epstein compromising Bill Clinton, and he mentions Prince Andrew as well. So, Patrick, are you familiar with Ari? And what did you think just viewing that trailer?
There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that I don't have. I'm not omnipotent. So he's not a rabbit hole that I've gone down quite much, but I really need to. So if there's if you can plug that link, if there's a full episode where we can all see that, so I can get educated and the viewers can as well, I think that's a huge key piece of what we just heard. And if that's true from what we heard, then that should shock the conscience of everybody in America and the world if it's true that a foreign intelligence operation is controlling the U.S. So shout out to you for finding that huge piece of the puzzle, because a lot of people want to distract from that and say, oh, it wasn't an intelligence operation. Well, I would argue with what you just showed us that begs to differ, you know?
Yeah, and I've just sent you the link to the full interview on X. That was recorded, I think, 6 years ago. So I'm going to reach out to Ari and see if we can get him back on. Liam, any thoughts on what you just saw in that trailer?
Yeah, it's great. The more people we can get talking about the links to intelligence, the better. I mean, from the top, they'll never admit, obviously. So the mainstream media won't project that message. But from the bottom up, I think more and more people are waking up to what this operation was. It wasn't just parties. It wasn't just like, rich people swinging. It was intelligence. It was designed to get information and lure people in science, in tech, royal family people, politicians, to record them in sexual activities and have that on them.
Lord Popper, did you get a chance to watch Maxwell's brother on Piers Morgan a few hours ago?
Guys, I'm woefully behind. I didn't see that, and Shaun, I didn't get a chance today to watch your new interview. I did watch the Anya Wick, which was wow, like a lot. I would say just quickly, because I guess it's a little bit off topic, but I found her story, so say versus somebody like Kathy O'Brien, she's not as lineal in telling her story. Her story is not as lineal as, like, say, how Kathy O'Brien was able to tell it. But I also understand that Anya is more recently regaining her memories. So I imagine she's probably not as far along at putting the story together for herself, let alone for us. But that was I mean, it's wild. But regardless, guys, I really wanted to ask some questions. Liam, Shaun, Patrick, and they relate to money with this Epstein thing. So the first thing is, with all that her brother has listed, I mean, her legal fees have got to be something else. So I have a two-part question, guys. First of all, like, where do you suppose her money is coming from at this point? Like, I'm really ignorant about her personal fortune, if there even is one. If any of her money was taken upon arrest. The other thing, guys, that connects to my other part is a lot of people lately have been, I see a lot of people in comments and whatnot saying that Epstein's bank account is still active and there's aspects of his estate that are still active financially. And so I would ask what you guys think about that, and if Gillan has any connection to his estate or would have access to any of that. But guys, I want to put in the point that my wife's a banker, and it's not unusual when somebody passes, if the estate's been left to a trustee of some type. It's not unusual for the estate to continue using existing bank accounts and kind of continuing along with the deceased person's estate, I guess, the easiest way to say it. Is there any chance that's what's happening with Epstein's finances? If is there any truth to that rumor? I guess that's my question.
All right, you've touched on a lot of different points there, and there's a few individual questions. So I'll just start out on the first point then. So yesterday we posted the Anya Wick interview, Epstein's niece, and it's got 200,000 views overnight, and she's just blown away by all the love and support, and thanks everybody for the kindness that's come in. You can see she's a seriously traumatized person, and she didn't just talk about the stuff that we're hearing in the news. She talked about how the family through generations have participated in the occult, worship the cult of Baal, and we've reached out to some experts on the cult of Baal, the ancient god, to try and get more information on that, do a deep dive on that, and then you moved over to questions about Epstein's finances. I mean Maxwell's finances, sorry, and perhaps I'll bring Patrick in at this point and see what he's got to say. What can you remember all of the questions that Papa asked about Maxwell's finances, Patrick?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unanswered questions, and that's really kind of where we begin here. Shout out to Senator Ron Wyden of my state, Oregon, somebody I actually don't normally like because he's kind of sat on the Mercy Corps scandal that Shaun, shout out to you. You've done more on the Mercy Corps scandal than Ron Wyden's ever done. That was here in Oregon. But I kind of have a problem with that because he's close to the Kenny Geyers, Grand J.C. Penney I work for. So he's doing, like, in my opinion, he's doing a political head fake, limited hangout. But at the same time, I'm down with that because anybody who wants to do something about releasing Epstein files is doing good, in my opinion, even if it's out of, whatever kind of limited hangouts or political opportunism. If they're still doing something, it's still good. So what I'm about to say is Ron Wyden, although I have problems with him, I respect him and I give credit when it's due. Now, what's the answer to that question? Well, he just went viral the other day announcing that the Senate Finance Committee is investigating and is aware of tons of Epstein financial records and files within the Treasury Department that are being covered up, like thousands of transactions worth billions of dollars. And in the past, about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, Ron Wyden had called out Leon Black by name on Twitter. So Ron's actually impressed me quite a bit, although he doesn't want to talk about Mercy Corps because he's too close to the people that covered that up. He's still doing good work when it comes to the financial crimes of the Epstein network. And that's kind of where I say Epstein network broad, because it wasn't just him, it was Gillan. There's many people around him, JP Morgan Chase. I know that Juliette Bryant, who's speaking, got paid out of two different settlements. One, I believe it was one from JP Morgan Chase and some other one. So there are credible victims out there who are still speaking, and we got to continue to listen to what their pieces of the puzzle are. I'm not a banker, but I definitely think that there are a lot of sus things happening. Like, he made the point that his bank accounts are still active. I've also heard that as well online. There's a lot of weird things going on. So what I can say to that is that we need to push Senator Ron Wyden to keep doing what he's doing, and also demand people on the right wing to support him. It's like we got to play the political game here as much as it's not a game. These people see it as a game. So if they're playing games, trying to get ahead of things, to limit a hangout, absolve themselves, then we have to push them even harder into, oh, we see you're looking into this. Now we need to be the guardians of the narrative. We got to step in and tell Ron Wyden directly every day or every couple of days, we're watching you, we're aware. We're not going to let you just limit a hangout, like water down whatever you're doing. You're doing something, and this is what we want you to discover. We're seeing this, we're seeing that. Are you seeing the same thing Ron Wyden? And if he dodges or ducks, that tells us that that's sus. So if he does that, then we got to go to the right wing and tell people like Thomas Massey, hey, Thomas, normally you don't like this guy, but you're working with him. Here's what he's not looking into enough. So we give his opposition the stuff that he's not looking into so that they can hold him accountable. So they both have, so if we give them the pieces to the puzzle that they're both kind of not looking at and demanding that they both look at it and spotlight that, it's going to spotlight them in an awkward situation where they have to look more. And I think that's why we're still talking about Epstein, because it hasn't gone away. Sorry for the tangent, but is that kind of answer your question to how I kind of see it?
Well said, man. I'm gonna come in with some more information before we follow up. So you asked about the Maxwell family fortune, and if you read the book the Assassination of Robert Maxwell, the premise is that, and it does give the historical context, how he got into publishing, etc. Bought the Mirror Group newspapers, was the biggest competitor to Rupert Murdoch at one point when I was growing up as a kid. And he fleeced the Mirror Group's pension, stole all the pension money because he had a debt pyramid. So the reason that they think he was assassinated in that book is that he was leaning on Israel to get more money to keep his debt pyramid sustained, and he was being a bit of a nuisance, so they decided to eliminate him, to shut him up, and because he had so many connections, he'd done so much work for the intelligence agencies, and he was kind of trying to leverage what he knew, and they viewed that as a threat, so they got rid of him. The official story was he went on the deck, he was taking a piss over the side, and he just fell in. But in the assassination of Robert Maxwell, they said they came out with a frogman, and he named the yacht after his favorite daughter because she was steeped in intelligence, and she came out right away when he died and did an interview and said he hadn't done it himself. He'd been killed. So we had Matthew Steeples on, and Matthew Steeples was doing a deep dive on where all the money went to, after Robert Maxwell died. And Matthew Steeples believes that some of the Mirror Group pension money was laundered to the kids. I mean, if you look at the family tree, they've had a bizarre history, some real tragedies that they've lost a few of the kids, and some of them had fallen out, some of them fell out with the father, but some of them went on, including the sisters, into tech and other suspected shady intelligence activities, let's just say, and made their own fortune. So this is not a family that is lacking in money. That's what I'm getting at. I think when Maxwell herself was arrested, she was worth about 20 million, they were saying, but I imagine a lot of that was siphoned off to the lawyers. So, you know, they're not, these are not poor people, the Maxwells. Even to this day, they've got forensic accountants and analysts trying to unravel the spider web that Maxwell built to try and figure out how that money was laundered, where it went, and it's too complex